Hi students, today 11th portion, 10th lesson, which topic is going on to be video uploading is commonly called as transport in plants. In transport in plants, today which topic is going to be classified as namely called as factors affecting rate of transpiration. So this is the title. Today it can be classified. Before entering the topic, what are the definitions of transpiration? That means loss of water in the form of water vapor. Generally, there are three types of transpiration, namely cuticular transpiration, lenticular transpiration, then stomatal transpiration. Among the three, which one is much exposure of water transpiration takes place means stomatal transpirations. There are three types of transpiration. What are the factor is influencing affect the rate? So based on that affect the rate, the factor can be categorized into two types. Namely, the first one, external factor. Are also known as environmental factor. The second one namely called as internal factor. Are also known as plant factors. These factor is mainly influencing affect the rate of transpiration. Can I go to the first one descriptions? Namely, external factors or environmental factor. For external factor or environmental factor, which factor is the first influence commonly called as atmospheric humidity. The rate of transpiration rate is going to reduce. The rate of transpiration is reduced because the atmosphere possesses high humidity. So that if it is occur high humidity means rain is responsible for reduce the rate of transpiration. If the atmosphere is a dry, when the atmosphere is going to be dry, that time increase the rate of transpiration. So that decreasing rate of transpiration, increase the rate of transpiration, those are alternately or proportionally it must be takes place, which is are happening due to presence of this or due to determination about it humidity. So this is the first factor. Second one, temperature. So temperature also one of the important factor affect the rate of transpiration. If increase the temperature, increase the rate of transpiration. Instead of, if it is decrease the temperature as well as decreases the rate of transpiration. If it may be possess high temperature, it may be available, or it may be considered as extreme temperature, it may be available. So if high or extreme temperature is available means what it must be happen to be here means reduce the rate of transpiration. How? Because if the temperature level it must be present beyond the level means the temperature which leads to closure of stomata. Why that closure of stomata takes place mean high temperature if it is available mean which leads to excess of water takes place or excess of loss of water takes place. Due to preventing excess of loss of water at the time of high temperature is available mean predominantly or generally the stomata will be going to close. If the stomata is going to close mean that time it must takes place reduce the rate of transpiration. Why the reduced rate of transpiration takes place mean the stomatal structure is going to flaccidity. Due to flaccidity, the transpiration rate becomes to be stops. Can I go to the third one factor? The third factor is commonly called as light. Light also one of the prominent factor affect the rate of transpiration. If light intensity is increased, as a result of increase the rate of temperature, If increase the temperature, likewise increase high intensity of light. Instead of, if decreases the temperature resulting degrees, or it may be possess low intensity of light. So what I would like to be indicating here means it may be possess high intensity or low intensity. Both are is responsible for permeability to transpiration. But sometimes light is also permeability of water in the cell membrane. So light is also what the permeability means? To allow. So light also to permeability of water in the cell membrane, because it is to allow the water outside the cell. So in the number of sap components are there. The sap component, it's commonly called as water. Such a water, how it must be came from inside to the cell mean light also one of the prominent factor that must be allowing. Can I go to that fourth one factor? Wind velocity. You know that the daily the climate is not wind is always blow. Sometimes the atmosphere which is not having blow off here, or sometimes still air is not accumulated at the surface of leaves. If the situation is occurring, increase or decrease the rate of transpirations. How come to the point like this? What is the called wind velocity? If there is no wind is breezy, or there is no blow of wind is not takes place in the surface of stomata means, you know that for the surface of leaf there are number of stomata is there. So stomata is a commonly called as is the aperture of opening. If there is no wind, or if wind is not breezy, on the surface of leaf, the stomata is containing saturated water. So the stomata is a highly filled with water. If it is highly filled water is there takes place, but there is no wind, breezy. So such a water, there is no possible in transpiration. So that time transpiration is less. Instead of the wind is breezy or flow of air, it must be takes place. The wind carry water. Due to wind carry water, how much amount of water it must be stored in the structure of stomata? The whole water is going to transpiration. So, how much of water molecule which are present in the structure of stomata with help of wind breezy, all water is going to be evaporate means the rate of transpiration is high. Due to presence of rate of transpiration high at a situation in a surface of cell or in the stomata, there can be created DPT. What is DPT? Diffusion pressure deficit. Due to excess loss of water is going to transpiration in the surface of cell, there can be created DPT. In the presence of diffusion pressure deficit, the pressure it must be moved in the stem. From the stem, the pressure is going to root. From the root, the water molecule is regarding what uptakens. So here, due to wind breezy, the maximum amount of water it must be carried. So transpiration heavily takes place. But sometimes, if the wind velocity, it must be present in extreme. Or if it is a present above the normal level, or high blow of wind takes place, or heavy breezy takes place. If a heavy breezy is always takes place, means commonly called as total amount of water is a heavily loss. That situation, what are the precautions it takes in the stem, or what are the precautions it must take the plants? So if extreme breezy takes place means excess loss of water to be prevented. How the excess water is going to prevent that situation? The stomata is remain closed. Why the stomata is remain closed? Mean this is a situation, this function is regularly happen because extreme velocity is predominantly they may be occur mean how much amount of water it must be available in the structure of stomata mean whole water is going to transpiration mean the plant will to death. For survive or if it is occurred alive condition, that time the stomata is remain closed, that time the transpiration rate should be stopped. That is commonly called as wind velocity. Can I go to the next one is commonly called as atmospheric pressure. So atmospheric pressure also one of the factor for affect the rate of transpirations. If low atmospheric pressure increase the rate of transpiration. So the hill or the mountain, always it must be possess high temperature. Why? The hill or mountain, always it may be possess high temperature because it must be contain always low atmospheric pressure. Okay, that situation which is to be maintained neutralized such a temperature or such a transpiration. So, low temperature, that's neutralizing the atmospheric So what I am saying, low atmospheric pressure increase rate of transpiration. That's why the hill or mountain always they can be process high transpiration because of that low atmospheric pressure. In the transpiration or the high transpiration, which ought to be maintained neutralization means the presence of low temperature. If low temperature is not available, the hill means the hill plan is always maintain high transpiration. But the presence of low temperature, the rate of transpiration is going to be reduced. The next one factor is commonly called as water. So water, one among the factor of affect rate of transpiration, but the optimum growth of plants require adequate amount of water. So, if the plant it must be grow or plant it going to well grow means, which are the things to be essential is commonly called as adequate amount of water or more amount of water is much essential for normal plant growth. Such a water is going to last or the excess of water is lost by temperature or by transpiration. What will be going to is commonly called as wilting. So what is the commonly called as wilting? The plant is not proper structure or the plant is not occur glowy structure. That is commonly called as wilting. So when the situation the plant is going to wilting in commonly called as what? If adequate amount of water is not available for the plant growth, excess of water is lost by the temperature, the plant which leads to wilting. There are three types of wilting. That's called incipient wilting. Second thing, temporary wilting. Third thing, permanent wilting. Can I go to the first one? Wilting is commonly called as incipient wilting. What I call incipient wilting is meaning commonly called as decrease the amount of water in the cell structure but that symptoms are not visible. So total amount of water is there inner to the cell. Such a content of water is lost. Even if it is lost the water, but the symptom will not be visible or the symptom will not be appear. That is commonly called as incipient wilting. The second one, temporary wilting. because the wilting is a temporary, it's not a permanent. That means commonly called as. On hot summer day, the freshness of herbaceous plant decrease the turgor pressure when on a hot summer the freshness of herbaceous plant decrease the turgor pressure in a daytime. The loss of turgor pressure, the plant which moves to wilting, on going to night, increase the turgor pressure. The plants regain the freshness of structure. So that to say temporary wilting is not a permanent, but wilting is appear which plant? Herbaceous plant when is a daytime, but due to night increase the turgor pressure, the plant it must become on normal portions. Correct. The third one, permanent wilting. Which leads to the plants are commonly called as death. Why? Because the soil, there is no available of adequate amount of water, or in the dry situation, the soil there is no water. Even the plants are available, roots cannot take absorption of water. If it is present the water means the root is happen of absorption. Root is there, plant is available is there, but there is no water. That situation, the plant's root cannot be taken absorption of water. So without transportation or without transpiration or without transportation, or which is without absorption of water and mineral salts, how the plant it must store food molecule. So the plant expecting when is available to the water. So there is no water in the soil. Such a wilting, which plant it must be takes place? The plant which leads to death. These are commonly called as incipient building, temporary wilting, and permanent wilting. Correct. What the second factor is commonly called as internal factor. Or also known as plant factors. Namely, leaf surface, second one, leaf structure. What do they call leaf surface and leaf structure? Some terrestrial plants the leaf structure is so broad. If the leaf structure is so broad, mean when the temperature passes on the surface of leaves, which is maybe possess faster transpiration. For reduce the rate of transpiration in xerophytic plants, even commonly called xerophytic plants, the plants which live on extreme dry condition. That's why xerophytic plants are, the leaf structure is so small or the leaf may be reduced. If you reduce it, it may be occur spiny or hairy like structure. These are commonly called as leaf surface. Can I go to discuss about leaf structure? Some anatomical adaptations occur some plants leaf structure. What are the anatomical adaptations occur some leaves is commonly called as sunken stomata, hairs, cuticle, and some colloidal substance or hydrophilic substance such as gum and mucilaginous substances. So what are the anatomical adaptations that are occur in the structure of leaves? Sunken stomata. What do they call sunken stomata? The stomata is occur in the lower epidermis, which is maybe possess deep pit. That pit, it may be occur hairs. In addition, the outermost layer of epidermis, which must be covered, a thick layer is commonly called as a cuticle, along with hydrophilic substances or colloidal substances like gum or gummy-like substances or semi-solid, that's called mucilaginous substances. If the things are occur in the structure of leaf means that's responsible for reduce the rate of transpiration. For the structural view, xerophytic plants, it must be considered as a remarkable adaptation. What are the remarkable adaptations that must be occur the xerophytic plants? The first one, open shear. Is a cactus variety. The plants of open shear, the leaves are absent, but the stems are occur look like flattened structure. What that? The stems are occur look like flattened structure. The stems are occur look like greeny structure. So instead of the leaf characteristic feature here, stem is a character. What is the function? It is a carry out the process commonly called as photosynthesis. So that is open shear. So stem is flattened leaf like look like a leaf-like structure. Instead of leaf characteristic feature, stem is a carry out. That function is commonly called as photosynthesis. Such a modification is commonly called as willow cloud. The second one, asparagus. That is also commonly called as xerophytic plants. What are the peculiar adaptation mean? The stem is they can be possess reduced growth of stems. That reduced growth of stem, it may be occur look like leaf-like structure. There is a speciality that must be occur asparagus. Such a modification is commonly called as cladode or chlorophyll. What do you say? In asparagus, the stem may be possess a reduced length. That reduced length of plant, it may be occur look like leaf-like structure. Such a modification, cladode or chlorophylls. The last one is commonly called as acacia, melanoxylon. What is the specialty is commonly called as? Know that generally there is a leaf This is a petiole. What is petiole? Stalk of leaf is commonly called as petiole. In Acacia melanoxylon, the petiole becomes swollen. The leaf, what type of leaf is commonly called as compound leaves. The compound leaves soon fall off. When fall off, instead of leaf cactus feature, which is a caryot, is commonly called as petiolis caryot. That situation, the petiole becomes swollen or ring-like structure, but it may possess greeny color. So the petiole greeny color perform the process of photosynthesis. Such a modification is commonly called as pillow. These are the things is commonly called as factors affecting rate of transpirations. Yes. Can I go to the next one? Discussing topic, it is commonly called as plant anti-transplants. What is the call? Anti-transplants. There's a call against. What are the definitions commonly called as? Some substances, it must be applied on the plants or surface of the leaves. That substance reduce the rate of transpiration, or which is check the rate of transpiration but will not disturbing any other physiological process of gaseous exchange. So based on the check of transpiration, the anti-transpirants can be classified as two types. The first one, to act as physical barrier on the stomata. So it acts as physical barrier on the stomata. So for example like this, colorless plastics, silicone oil, low viscosity waxes. So those are spray on the leaves. When is those substances spray on the leaves mean these substances, it is formed as a thin layer on the surface of leaves. That substance reduce the rate of transpiration but permeable of carbon dioxide and oxygen. So what is the net result of physical barriers on the stomata is commonly called as the success is limited. Second one is commonly called as inductions of closure of stomata. So which one that gaseous component? It's generally act as a natural anti-transplants, namely called as carbon dioxide is a commonly called as natural anti-transplants. Is not only act as a natural anti-transplants, it's also play as an important role is commonly called as inhibit or inhibition of photorespiration. from phenyl mercury chloride. Phenyl mercury chloride. That a chemical substances, it must be sprayed on foliar leaves, or the substance which must be sprayed on young leaves. That substance, what is the play as an important role is commonly called as partial closure of stomata. The partial closure of stomata that must be occur minimum 2 weeks or more than 2 weeks. If it is occur 2 weeks or more than 2 weeks, but will not affect any toxic effect. So if it is there, but will not any effects are there. In addition, abscisic acid is also one of the prominent factor of closure of stomata. One more thing, abscisic acid, one of the important factor for closure of stomata. The next one, uses. Anti-transplants reduce the excess loss of water by temperature or by transpiration. So, anti-transplant which reduce excess loss of water by transpiration in several kinds of crop plants. Second thing, anti-transplant, it is useful for seedling transplantation in nurseries. So students, today I want to be discussing up to plant anti-transplants and uses. Thank you.